Sigitishuk Pinasi, Naxta Ustutsik Pinna. Zagukta Istawatsimach Pinnana, Istawa Spinnan, Ayustabata Pio, Gistukanawatua, Sano, Gitranitachtu Kipinani, Naguktani Takipin, Hanagan Stabo Commons, Hanyay, hey. Okay. Don't eat yet. Give yourselves 5 minutes before you chew. You'll be all right. Thank you.
So in those 5 minutes that we're waiting to chew, I'd like to thank the Honourable Elder. I'd like to again welcome everyone. I hope you're, I know we just had a very somber thought, but I hope you're all still having fun. We had a great start last night. We had a great start this morning. Rumor has it that it was one of the best attended breakfasts ever. So we're going to move into a little bit more business this afternoon. And I think that, as someone so rightly reminded me, none of you are here to see me. You're here to see the next person. And that person really fired us up last night. I would like to invite Premier Jim Prentice to take the microphone again. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you. We're mic'd. Well, thank you very much, Terry. Thank you, fellow progressive conservatives. Elder Tom Cranebear, thank you for those beautiful comments. I would say that, you know, I've always kept I keep a clean desk. I believe in that. But I keep a leather book on the corner of my desk. I've never really explained to anyone what that's about. But it's a book that all of the time I've been in public service, I write down things in it that strike me as being wise and worth keeping in mind. So when I get to my office on Sunday night, Tom, I'm going to put on a blank page, "Too soon old, too late smart," which I think is very wise. So thank you, everyone, for your welcome. Thank you for your efforts and your loyalty and, of course, your service to the party. And as Terry said, last night was, in fact, a great start to our convention. It was a lot of fun. As promised, it was one heck of a party. And so Karen reminded me at about midnight, as she's prone to do, that I had been elected to be the leader of the party, not elected to be leading the partying. And so we headed home at that point. But, and I must say, I woke up actually as well with a sore shoulder from the hockey game. I don't know if that was from falling down, from fighting with George Vandenberg, or from shaking hands last night. But as progressive conservatives, you know, we are hopeful about Alberta's future and confident in its potential. And that's what this convention is all about. There have been a lot of kind words said today in the media about us, about what we're doing. But I just want to reground everyone. My best friend was my dad. He passed away in 2004. He never actually got to see me in politics because he actually tried to talk me out of it. But he wasn't a big fan of politics or politicians, actually. He was a very humble man. He was incredibly modest. He was the youngest guy to ever play professional hockey in the NHL for the Toronto Maple Leafs. To this day, he broke in when he was 17 years old, the youngest guy in history to ever play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have to forgive him that it was the Leafs because there were no Oilers or Flames back then. But And he was there briefly. He was there, as he said, for a cup of coffee, but he did make it, and we were always very proud of him. But he always said to me, and so I'm an old hockey player, but my dad always gave me 2 pieces of advice and that I never forget. And one was every time I headed out the door with my skates on, and I've applied it to politics, he said, Jim, he said, don't ever put your head down coming over the blue line. And that's good advice, because if you do, you'll wake up someday next week. But the other piece of advice that he always gave me, which I really value, and it may be the best advice I've ever received, and it applies, I guess, to hockey, but for sure it applies to politics, and that's that don't fall in love with your own press clippings. Exactly, because you're only as good as your next shift. The last shift doesn't matter. And so that's something that I always try to remember. And so, you know, over years and decades, we've worked as a party to help lead our province toward greater heights and to new frontiers. And where others have seen pitfalls, we've seen opportunities. And where others have been, I think, critical and negative, we remain optimistic. Optimistic, ladies and gentlemen, about the province that we love and the people with whom we share it. And we are steadfast in our affection for this great sweep of prairie and the foothills, and as Tom Cranebear said, the Rocky Mountains. And I'm sure all of you have taken the time, as you should in a busy day, to stop and look out that window and see the Rocky Mountains. And you know, there's not a time where I leave Calgary where we don't crest the hill and see the Rockies with these great big blue Alberta skies where I don't catch myself and get goosebumps and say, I love this place. And today is one of those kind of days. So we're excited as a party. We're excited to see what tomorrow holds. But above all else, we are proud to be Albertans. Albertans who are tough, who are resilient, who are strong, who are entrepreneurial, who are independent-minded, who are resilient, and yes, just a little bit cantankerous all of the time. And so we're proud of that, proud of this province where we pride ourselves on being the Mavericks. Now, 2 months ago, I began my service as the 16th Premier of our province. I followed the 15th Premier of our province, and he's here with us today, and I wanted to acknowledge him and say a few words about him. Dave Hancock and I joined the Progressive Conservative Party as a couple of kids in 1975 at about the same time. To be fair, I think Dave actually was there before I got there. And you know, nobody in this province cares more about this party. No one cares more about Alberta. No one in this province has dedicated more of their life to public service than Dave Hancock. And he's... And Dave Hancock served as the leader of this party at a difficult time. He served as the Premier of our province at a very difficult time. And he served with distinction, with integrity. And when he left that office, people in this province stood up and applauded, and they loved him, and they respect him, and they admire him. And our party will forever be indebted to Dave Hancock's time of service as our leader. And I want everyone in this room to stand with me and say thank you to Dave for his service. And Dave, to you and Janet and your family, I think that says it all, that response from this crowd. And so thank you from the bottom of our hearts. In all that we said and all that we did, we have made it clear as a new progressive conservative government that we represent new leadership, new voices, and a new way of doing things. And so it is also a new way that we have approached governing. And we call it Alberta under new management. And more than that, we are proud of the new team that we've put together because they embody new management that is determined to move Alberta forward. Now, Albertans are tired, as I mentioned last night. They're tired of the old politics. They're tired of all of the talk, and I'll tell you for sure they're tired of the negativity that they've seen in this province. And so I heard that message loud and clear, as did Thomas and Rick over the course of the leadership race this summer. And I heard it, and you heard it again this fall over the course of the by-elections. In Grand Prairie, in Medicine Hat, Red Deer, Westlock, Calgary, Edmonton, we heard the voice of Alberta. The voice of Alberta that is a voice of strength, of decency, of compassion, of resolve. And I heard the voice of Alberta saying this: give us good government, government of common sense, government that acts for the people, and government that we can all be proud of each and every day. That's what we heard. And all of us today, we heard it loud and clear because frankly, you could not door knock a single block in any of those streets in any of those 4 by-elections without being told exactly that by the voters of this province. And so in 8 short weeks, our new government has begun to establish a reputation for common sense, for no nonsense, and for decisive action. And that's how we're going to continue to govern this province. We've shown that our decisions will be based on the people's priorities: sound fiscal management, and a respect and a focus on the core services, including health, education, and taking care of our parents and our grandparents in their elderly years. And we've shown that we are committed to restore trust in government and in the people who serve on behalf of Alberta. And rebuilding that trust is not going to be easy, and it won't happen overnight. It's not about snapping our fingers or crossing our hearts. It's going to be hard work, and it has to be reinforced. It's a commitment that has to be reinforced with action and supported by political representation of the highest caliber. But slowly, ladies and gentlemen, slowly, that trust is being rebuilt. And you know, this is something that I hold pretty close to my heart as the new Premier. And I have made a point, I don't fly around this province in airplanes. From time to time, we will need charters to reach rural Alberta and remote parts of Alberta, but we don't need them to go between Edmonton and Calgary. And so I drive. I drive the same way that other people do. And Karen and I we stop in at Tim Hortons and A&W's just like they do. And we talk to people. We spent this past Monday night in Wendy's in Airdrie. We couldn't get out once we got in, and we couldn't eat our food once we got it, but they loved it. They loved it, and folks, be under no illusions. In every corner of this province, people like Alberta under new management, and that's what they want to see from us as elected representative, and that's what they want to see from their Premier in this province, and that's what we're going to aspire to do. And so slowly, we're beginning to demonstrate, I think, a new and a different progressive conservative government. Now, few in this room would dispute that it's been a tough couple of years. It's been a tough couple of years indeed, a disappointing time. And as I said last night, progressive conservatives, we owe a debt to everyone who is in this room, who has stood by the party through those difficult times, and who kept faith, who kept a candle in the window. Jim McCormick, the party executive and the board of directors, who helped hold things together while we found our way. And Jim, and to your team, thank you. And on October 27th, 4 constituencies in our province were given the opportunity to pass judgment on our new government, on our new candidates, whom I introduced last night, on our new priorities, and on our commitment to do better. And you know, on October 27th, those Albertans did something the media didn't expect, something that the pundits didn't predict, and something that the opposition is still grappling with. Exactly. And they elected in 4 by-elections, 4 ballots, 4 new candidates. They decided to send a message to the new Progressive Conservative MLAs and send them to the Legislative Assembly. And it was a moving night, but, ladies and gentlemen, more than anything else, it was a humbling night. A deeply humbling night for me as your leader and for us as a party. We're all very proud of the effort that were put forward by the candidates, by the volunteers, by their teams, by our caucus, by our volunteers, and it was inspiring. It was inspiring to see Progressive Conservatives come together, ministers door-knocking side by side with volunteers, with staff of the party, with volunteers from the party, knocking on doors every night, night after night after night, listening to Albertans and asking for their support at each and every door that we could get to. In my riding, as I said last night, we knocked on 13,000 doors. I knocked on 5,000 myself. We put up 2,000 lawn signs in that provincial constituency. And Stephen, whatever I did, I'll tell you this, whatever I did, Stephen Mandel and Gordon Dirks and Mike Ellis did twice as much. It was that kind of an effort. And there's someone that I want to acknowledge who has been an unsung hero in all of this, and I want to make sure everyone in this room knows that. And that is George Vandenberg, who is our whip, who is George Vandenberg is the voice of common sense and voice of no nonsense in our caucus and in our cabinet. And I'll tell you, from day one, he has been at my side. He has been a stalwart. He believes passionately in this party. And I'll tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, we would not have had the wisdom or the fortitude it took to win those 4 by-elections without George Vandenberg. So just thank him and join me in saying thank you. But let's be clear, folks. Let's be clear about what the people of Alberta said to us on October 27th. This was not an affirmation of what people saw for the last 2 years, anything but. This was not a sweeping mandate. This was a second chance. This was an electorate coming together in a single united voice, because anytime you went to any of those by-elections, people were speaking with a singularity of voice about this. And they said, show us what you've got. Show us, prove to us that you're going to be something new, you're going to be something different, and show us that you're going to listen. This was a group of voters saying, you know, we're not completely sold yet, but we're going to give you another chance. Another chance, now get to work. And so what we were given on October 27th was as simple as this. It was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to demonstrate that this is truly a new government with new priorities and a new way of getting things done. Sort of like the opportunity that we all have every day as Albertans, as the most fortunate people on the planet. An opportunity to get out of bed, work hard, and be successful, and prove that you deserve it. And you know, I'll never forget, as long as I live, a new constituent of mine who put it this way. I knocked on her door in Foothills, and she said, okay, Jim. She said, we're going to give you another chance. We're going to give you another chance because we believe in you and we believe in what you're telling us and what you're saying. And she said, now please, please don't break our hearts. And we're not going to. I'm not going to, and this party's not going to, and this government is not going to. So we will redouble our efforts to act with purpose and serve with distinction. We're going to keep working in the best interest of Albertans towards a better future for all of us. And it has been a lot of work. I'm not afraid of a hard day's work. I think people know that. But I don't think I've ever seen a team of men and women work harder than our caucus has. And I acknowledged them last night, and I want to do so again today. I have never seen a group of men and women come together as a team, united, have each other's backs, and work harder. And ladies and gentlemen, as Progressive Conservatives, we have neither the luxury nor the liberty of time to take a breather. It's not like that. Those are not the circumstances that we're in. The next election is little more than a year away, 2016. In 2015, we are going to need to move forward. We're going to need to select candidates in each of our province's constituencies. In all 87 constituencies, we are going to need to have candidates in place. And so we need potential nominees and their associations. We need to get organized. We need to get ready. We need to get working sooner rather than later. And in particular, we want to begin the nomination process. We want to have the nomination process finished province-wide by the end of 2015, but in particular, in the so-called misrepresented ridings, we want our candidates nominated and in place by the 1st of June. And so we will proceed on a constituency by constituency basis as each constituency is ready. Once we have good candidates ready to go, we will start. And these will be open and fair and democratic nominations, as they has always been in this party, because this party belongs to the people and it belongs to Albertans, ladies and gentlemen. And we want these nominations, we want these candidates to have ample time to knock on doors. We want them to have time to meet and listen to people in their communities and to share the message that Alberta is under new management and to hear what Albertans think about that, to hear what Albertans in their constituencies think about it and to communicate that input to the Premier and to caucus and to Cabinet and to begin the process and to continue on rebuilding trust across this province. And I put it that way for a good reason, because as I've made it abundantly clear to our ministers, our job is to act on and to address the priorities of the people of Alberta, not the priorities of the bureaucracy in Edmonton. And anybody who's having trouble understanding that had better spend more time in Wendy's and in church basins and at hockey rinks hearing what people are saying. Because that's where you find the real Alberta. That's where you're going to find the men and women in this province who make this such a unique, an unmistakably different, and an unbeatable place. And they want a government that acts on their priorities, not somebody else's priorities. And nobody should forget that lesson. And so to progressive conservatives here in this room and across our province, I say this, our party, I've been a member of this party for 40 years, I'm proud of it. Our party has a remarkable history of service and a history of electoral success. We've helped to build Alberta. We have had past leaders who are political legends in this province. But folks, none of that matters right now, because our focus is not going to be on yesterday, it has to be on tomorrow. And as we look to the 2016 election, we cannot take any part of this province for granted. We cannot take any constituency for granted. We cannot take any vote for granted. And it's not our history that is going to make us successful. It's our record as a government over the course of the next year, and it's the vision that we offer for the future that's going to determine the next election, ladies and gentlemen. And for sure, it's going to be hard work. And it's our hard work as a party, because we can't do this if we're not a strong political party. We can't do any of this. A government alone cannot be successful. We have to be grounded in every community across this province. And we have to be a party that believes to its core that we offer the best way forward for this province and for the people who live here. And the effort that the people in this room have put forward already is remarkable. In the 40 years I've been in this party, I've never seen people work this hard. I've never seen people more united. I've never seen people more focused on what we need to do, and I'm proud of that. And so we need to carry forward that same spirit of dedication, camaraderie. We need to keep the fires of enthusiasm burning across this province. We need to raise money. We need strong membership rosters. We need in each constituency to have strong executives and boards in place. And yes, we need to recruit great candidates for the next election. We need to come together as never before to knock on every door and secure every vote, because folks, that's how we're going to win in 2016, and that's the only way that we're going to win in 2016. And mark my words, we're going to. And so in the days to come, every member of our caucus will work with our constituency organizations, with their constituency organizations and with some of the misrepresented ridings, to ensure that the commitment, the enthusiasm that we showed in our by-election campaign is carried into every corner of this province. And in turn, each of the people who serve in our caucus will serve as strong elected representatives who are going to bring the needs and concerns of Albertans forward to the Legislative Assembly, speaking passionately on their behalf. Because, ladies and gentlemen, good government and good policy always begins with the people. It has no other source. It can have no other source than the people of this province. And as a party, we have to dedicate ourselves to listening. Listening to the people we aspire to serve and then acting on their behalves. And as a government, we must and we will continue to put the voice of the people at the very center of the decisions making that we're making in terms of the policies we advocate and the priorities that we pursue. And you know what they call it? They call it common sense, because that's what it is. And so Albertans will see us delivering on this pledge as we advance on our 5 priorities. Firstly, a commitment to prudent and proudly conservative fiscal management. Under the able hands of our Minister of Finance, Robin Campbell, we will make good on our promise to balance the budget of this province in 2014. Hear, hear. And we will adhere to the principles of sound, common sense financial planning as we strive to address a fast-growing province, ladies and gentlemen, in a time when oil prices have fallen to $75 per barrel. And this new reality represents a challenge. And I don't want anyone to leave this room, to leave this convention without hearing this. At $75 oil, this is not business as usual in Alberta. We are tough, we are resilient, and we're up for the challenge, but no one should mistake that there are not consequences in this low-price environment. And we will have to deal with those. Every dollar that the price of oil drops represents a loss of $200 million to the Treasury of Alberta. You can do the math. And so this is not business as usual. You will hear more about this in the days ahead. We need to steel ourselves. We will face this new challenge together as our government protects the services that matter most to Albertans, while at the same time managing the finances of this province in a way that the people expect, which is both responsible and transparent. Our second priority is putting an end to entitlements, repairing the bonds of trust that exist between the elected people of this province and those who represent them. And so next week, our new Progressive Conservative government will introduce changes to Alberta's accountability framework to implement changes that the public has requested that will govern the behavior and actions of public officials. And as your leader and as the Premier, I will be guided by something. I will be guided always by the belief that if you're in public service, it's called public service for a reason. And every day that you have the good fortune to put your boots on and get out of bed and go as an elected representative to the Legislative Assembly, you are a servant of the people of Alberta. And I know it isn't just about rules and directives and laws. People break rules, I get that. And that's why it's about entrenching the values that people want to see, that Albertans want to see in the conduct of the Premier, of their Premier. And that's why people want to see a Premier that displays frugality and common sense and humility and decency and respect for the fact that the money we spend is other people's money. And every day that I'm in this position, I'm not perfect, but every day I'm in this position, I will work hard to try to make sure that we keep that trust and that we earn that trust of Albertans and that they see those values. Our third priority is better developing our resources and better marketing our energy, our forestry, and our agricultural products to a world that hungers for them, because you can't go anywhere in the Asia-Pacific basin. You can't go to Japan or Korea or Malaysia or China or Thailand without knowing that Alberta is a special place and they want everything that we produce, not just our energy. They want our forest products. They want our agricultural products. And there is no bigger obstacle to the prosperity of your children and your grandchildren than our inability to get our products into those markets in the Asia-Pacific basin, ladies and gentlemen. And so as a government, we are going to show leadership. We are going to show creativity. We're going to show resolve and cooperation, helping to make the most of our natural bounty by connecting this province to the global economy. And we will secure pipelines in due course in every direction. And I'll tell you, that's why in the first trip outside of this province, I went and I sat down with Premier Christy Clark. And you've seen a reset of the relationship that exists between the province of Alberta and the province of British Columbia, because I know Christy Clark, I respect her, she respects me, and folks, we can do business together. And so we have resolved to focus our collective efforts on the Asia-Pacific Gateway and accessing the markets of which I speak. Because I'll tell you this, Alberta and British Columbia together represent a 500 billion GDP economy, and working together into the Asia-Pacific basin, which is the fastest growing economy in the world, we have an influence, we have a power that is vastly disproportionate to our population. And so we will realize that. And last week you also saw that Premier Wall has now been engaged on the same path. And so the three premiers, that we call it the New West Partnership, and it's exactly that. It is a Western partnership, it is new, and the three of us are committed to make it work. And folks, as we do so, as we work with our partners, which will include British Columbia and which will also include the First Nations of this province and the First Nations of British Columbia, we will redefine ourselves, we will redefine Alberta as an environmental leader. We've begun to establish Alberta as a province committed to responsible energy growth and respected for our stewardship of the environment. There is a lot more to do in this respect. And you know, this comes naturally to me because I was raised in the Rocky Mountains in mining towns. I'm a conservationist, I'm a passionate fly fisherman. But even if you view it from a practical point of view, we must be environmental leaders, because if you're in the energy business in the 21st century, you're in the environment business. If you're in the forestry business, you're in the environment business. And if you're in the agricultural business, for sure, you're in the environmental business. And you know, in my journeys around this province, I have never met a single farmer or rancher who in their heart of hearts is not a passionate conservationist and cares about the environment. And so we will. And so we'll either be leaders in the environment here at home and around the world, or we will be left behind. We'll be left behind to market our energy solely into an increasingly congested North American marketplace and directionally limited in the same way in forestry and agriculture. And so we must secure access to new markets. And I've never, for an instant, ever suggested that the United States is not our most important customer, and they will always be our most important customer. The point I make is they can never again be our only customer. And our fifth priority, ladies and gentlemen, involves bringing common sense to the core public services that people look to the government to deliver. Their healthcare system, their education system, and taking care of their parents. And so it's about getting results. And we have put together a team that can achieve those results. And that is why, when I speak of healthcare, we have Minister Mandel responsible for healthcare. And when I talk about education, we have Minister Dirks, who has stepped up in terms of education. And when I talk about senior citizen care, we have Minister Johnson. And at the center of it all, we have Minister Bueller. This is a team of people who are going to drive results in terms of core services. And it is not easy, ladies and gentlemen. It is not easy because of the growth that we're experiencing in this province. No one in North America is experiencing the growth that we are in Alberta. No one. Our population is increasing from 2 million when I was the age of the youngest people at this convention. By 2025, we will be 5 million people in this province. Remarkable numbers. No one outside of Asia is experiencing this kind of growth. And so the pressure is intense. We have 230 school projects in this province today that are in various stages of design, construction, and commissioning. It's not easy work, let me tell you. But it has to be done because we can't have children, we can't have 5-year-old children who are Alberta citizens subjected to lotteries to determine whether or not they can get into a public school. And it's going to meeting the needs of seniors, meeting the needs of seniors without bringing our healthcare system to a standstill. And this is the challenge. And again, our problems are not unique. I was fascinated in talking with Premier Wall that Saskatchewan is facing the same problems we are directionally, the same challenges. What's unique about Alberta is the scale of what we are facing. And so above all, ladies and gentlemen, it means making responsible use of resources entrusted to government to deliver the services that Albertans expect. And this was difficult enough to begin with. I can assure you it's going to be a lot more difficult if oil prices stay at $75 per barrel. And so we will deal with that. And this province is tough and resilient, and there is no question about the long-term strength of our energy sector, and so we will get through this. But we'll only get through this if the government is strong and if this party is strong and is united. And so working from these 5 priorities, ladies and gentlemen, our new Progressive Conservative government has made a fresh start. Alberta is under new management. And we've started about the task of making progress in critical areas. But if we've learned anything so far, it's that what we have been given is the opportunity simply to work harder and to strive to be even better. And that work begins in earnest on Monday. On Monday, we will speak to Albertans through a new throne speech, a speech from the throne that people will hear for the first time. We will explain how our legislative agenda will allow us to further deliver on the needs and priorities of Albertans. And through it all, we will serve with ethics and integrity and treat the taxpayers' money with care and respect. And as Progressive Conservatives, we continue to be hopeful about Alberta's future, confident in Alberta's potential. The place that we live in, this province that we live in, the province that we love is so rich in possibilities and so deserving of the effort of all of us, and we should be proud to have a chance to be part of that. I've said to people, you do not win a bigger lottery in life than to be an Alberta citizen. But success is never assured. To be a citizen of such a province that is wild and free and glorious, to be an Albertan is something truly special. And ahead of us, there will be tests of character and of commitment, and we will endure them. And there are going to be challenges along the way, as there always have been, and we will overcome them. And even as we reflect on the proud history that we've been able to forge, we will recommit ourselves each and every day to the task of continuing to build Alberta for this generation and for the generations that follow. A province that is fairer and more compassionate, a province that is stronger and more prosperous. And together, all of us, the Cabinet, the caucus, and the people in this room, have been entrusted with something. We have been entrusted with the responsibility to define what comes next in the epic story that is the province of Alberta. We're under new management, so let's get to work. Thank you and God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, we're just going to take 5 minutes, and then we're going to get ready for our next session called In the Round, which will take place right behind me here. So if you can bear with us, we'll be back in 5 minutes.